First of all, Easter had a very important symbolic meaning for the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, because it is a Christian holiday that united all soldiers, and the slogan of this holiday was "Christ is risen, Ukraine will rise."
These photos captured a festive atmosphere, an attempt to celebrate the Easter holidays even in the forests and combine them with the military experience and certain religious practices.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Force, and I'm your host, Miroslava Yaremkin. The celebration of the resurrection of Christ in the times of war takes on special symbolism. And this year it will hopefully give Ukrainians even more faith in victory. Historians who researched the period of the Second World War, in particular the lives of women and children, say that in the first 2 years Ukrainians were apathetic towards any holidays. They perceived it as something that did not correspond to the times. No one could be happy and calm because in every family someone was missing, so there was no sense of celebration. But over time people adapted, realizing there was no alternative, and the holidays transformed into a form of solace, becoming a beacon of hope that everything would improve, providing some sort of distraction for people. Celebration of Easter now definitely feels the same way as it was 80 years ago. In today's episode, we will shed some light on the celebration of Easter amidst war and the historical continuity between celebrations during the times of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army and the modern armed forces of Ukraine. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our videos in the future. In the second half of the 1940s, the Soviet authorities began to suppress the Ukrainian liberation movement. During 1944-1953, 134,000 members and supporters of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists and almost 204,000 civilians were deported from Western Ukraine alone, which was the basis for this liberation movement. For prisoners in Stalin's concentration camps, the situation was on the verge of hopelessness. Working conditions, daily life, camp regime, and ostentatious atheism killed first the person in a person, and then his physical body. It is during such times that the spiritual foundation of existence helps to survive and preserve universal moral qualities. It is not surprising that the celebration of the main holidays, Christmas and Easter, testify to the resilience of man in opposition to the totalitarian machine of destruction. More on celebrating Easter under the Soviet regime, please welcome Associate Professor of the History Department of Ukrainian Catholic University, Vasyl Stefaniv.
Now, on the eve of the great Christian holiday, we also have an opportunity to talk about how important this holiday was for Ukrainians, for Christians, including for a very long process of Ukrainian liberation movement in the 20th century. And unfortunately, in the 21st century, we continue this process. When answering such questions, I always start with the most important. In the 20th century, the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church in Galiciana had, first of all, a double identity. This is both a religious identity and a national identity. And therefore, various patriotic holidays were often combined with Christian traditions, with Christian holidays in the organization of Ukrainian nationalists, as well as in various patriotic organizations of the 1920s and 30s. National holidays were combined with Christian holidays. And if we are talking about the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, and in particular about the period of the armed struggle, then the Easter holiday is such a turning point between winter and spring. And for the Ukrainian liberation movement, this is also partly a turning point between a winter lull in active hostilities and the beginning of spring. which ultimately led to greater hostilities on the part of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army and more operations by the NKVD or other punitive units to search for Ukrainian insurgents and accordingly their detection. Easter holidays provided an opportunity for fighters to gain strength as a religious and spiritual renewal, as well as to coordinate their actions in a certain way. We have a rather small part of various materials that cover the spiritual life during the activities of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army for various reasons. A lot of the documents were lost due to hostilities, due to the activities of the Soviet special services. Besides, they were lost partly due to the fact that the Ukrainian Insurgent Army had an order, or at least a recommendation, not to photograph the insurgents' faces in particular, and unfortunately, we lost some of these people. That is, we do not know who they were, or at least we do not have any of their photos. That was done for conspiratorial reasons. Researchers who are directly involved with the study of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army emphasize that the Easter holiday was mostly celebrated before 1946. This is also understandable because at that time the Soviet authorities did not control individual villages. Accordingly, the Ukrainian insurgents could meet in larger groups for some time, carry out certain coordination activities, and in particular during the Easter holidays meet in separate units, for example, with the local population as well. They communicated with the local population in order to psychologically gain some positive points, as well as to support locals and show them that the Ukrainian Insurgent Army continues to fight. The Ukrainian Insurgent Army on the territory of modern Poland, in particular in the Lemkiv region, was able to celebrate Christmas and Easter in large groups, in particular until 1947, before the Vistula operation ended. Because after that, the Ukrainian population decreased in these territories and the support accordingly also decreased. That is, the UIA remained in a hostile environment. We have about 50, 70 photos of the Easter holiday. These photos captured a festive atmosphere, an attempt to celebrate the Easter holidays even in the forests and combine them with the military experience and certain religious practices.
During the First World War, fighting ceased on Easter because individuals on both sides had connections to the church in some way. But the Second World War was cruel because two worlds collided in it. There was a similar situation that we observe today. There is a world of spiritually religious people, and there is a world of godless people, because we cannot even call them atheists. Because an atheist admits that there is no God, but respects the culture of others. This was manifested during the entire partisan war, which lasted not just 4 years, but decades, from the mid-1940s to the beginning of the 1960s. Alina Ponypaliak, researcher of the Ukrainian Liberation Movement, scientist and public activist, will elaborate more on the symbolic meaning of Easter for the Ukrainian Insurgent Army. First of all, Easter had a very important symbolic meaning for the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, because it is a Christian holiday that united all soldiers, and the slogan of this holiday was "Christ is risen, Ukraine will rise." This symbolism also consisted in the fact that fighters first began to celebrate Easter so actively during 1944-1945, as evidenced by the memories of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army members. A huge array of photos from the Yavoriv archive have been preserved, which show us how the Ukrainian military celebrated it during the war. This is impressive because, first of all, this was the moment when they could be joined by local people, who also often helped them. Usually it was, of course, their relatives, because those who joined the Ukrainian Insurgent Army were ordinary boys from the villages. They were local, and Easter has always been a holiday that united families. The Ukrainian Insurgent Army saw in Easter a huge symbolic meaning, because it is a holiday associated with the resurrection of God and the resurrection of Ukraine as an independent state, which the Ukrainian Insurgent Army actually fought for. Plus, it was a great holiday that united Ukrainian fighters. After all, nothing united them so much as everyday life, education, and the celebration itself. The celebration took place without alcohol, which destroys Soviet myths that the Ukrainian military drank alcohol. It was absolutely a holiday for brothers in arms, for unity. Villagers came very often and helped them in one way or another, especially if they were informers for the Ukrainian Insurgent Army. This was also fully supported by the main leadership of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. And actually, the Christian tradition involved celebration of Easter first of all. A very huge number of leaflets depicting Easter, the most symbolic holiday for the entire Christian world, have been preserved, but especially huge symbolism has always been for the Greek Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church. And that is why Easter was one of the most important holidays. It even seems to me that in the Eastern Christian tradition, Easter is a more important holiday than, for example, Christmas. So given such historical and symbolic continuity, from the point of view of the church and theology in general, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army supported this holiday, and just the peak of the celebration falls in 1944-1945. You've been watching a special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian War, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!